back to our Thursday evening chat session, all about sport, all about football, real focus on the inside of football. Dick Chester's football and insider's job is our subject matter this week. Dick, I'm delighted to say, is with me. He has a unique place in Sheffield football history. Now, we know, Dick, that plenty of players have played for both Sheffield clubs. Not many have gone directly from one Sheffield club to another, and you very nearly went directly from Sheffield United to Sheffield Wednesday.
Very nearly. Very nearly.
No, you couldn't have imagined that.
No.
Did you have any reservations about accepting a job?
Yes, I did. I did have some reservations. There's a story that got me in front of the Bert McGee at his home one evening, and at that particular meeting it went very well, and he offered me the job straight away, having got the approval of the directors previously. And I did say to him at the time, look, Chairman, this is not going to go down very well. Can't you just let me come in as a consultant until Eric does retire?
Eric England.
Eric
yes.
England, and then announce it. He said no. Right. He said, I haven't approached you. You haven't been approached, other than formally to come to this meeting tonight. There's been no tapping up. It's been completely open, and if it's in the Star tonight, they'll be wrapping up fish and chips tomorrow with it. So no, that's it.
Typical bluff comment from Bert McGee. He's a man I know that you've got great admiration for, but before we sort of talk more about that, a quote from your book is, some friendships were cut stone dead.
Absolutely.
As a result of this.
Absolutely. And, you know, I built up a network of people that I thought were friends, all Unitedites, Christmas cards and social evenings, etc., etc. The announcement made, no more Christmas cards, no more invitations, and a new set of friends, which in actual fact, I do mention in the book, do people want to know Dick Chester as Dick Chester, or Dick Chester as secretary of their particular football club? And that's something I've never ever been able to answer. No. Probably the supporter will. Yeah,
we'll talk about supporters in a bit more, because you feel they're badly undervalued, as indeed I do. But have those people forgiven you, the people who didn't send you the Christmas cards and excommunicated you?
I think I can think of only one that's had contact with me since.
Wow. Okay. Now, Howard Wilkinson, an era of great success. You were at Hillsborough 83 to 86. Sheffield Wednesday were in the process of getting promotion into the top flight when you went there. And what comes across is the strength of your relationships with those two top people at the football club, Bert McGee and Howard Wilkinson. Bert McGee first. I used to be quite afraid of him as a journalist, probably with good cause. He was real belt and braces, and he would let you know what he thought.
I think some of his fellow directors was afraid of him as well, because they didn't like upsetting him because of the consequences. But I met, the first week I was there, I went down to his offices at Presto Tools, sat in there, and he said, right, me and you's working together. Whatever happens at your end, you tell me. Whatever I pick up, I tell you. It don't go any further. And the day that breaks down is the day we say cheerio. And it never did break down.
You obviously got great personal trust in each other. And
the same, in actual fact, applied with Howard. Because the first day that I was on my own, after Eric had retired, I was invited into Howard's office after he finished training, and they said, right, welcome to Hillsborough, Dick. Look, I don't want anything to do with your job. I don't want you to poking your nose into my job, but if you hear anything about anything on my side, you come and tell me. And if I hear anything about your side, I'll come and tell you, and we'll sort it out together. So it was a three-way, but there was quite a bit of stuff that the chairman would say to me that I didn't repeat to Howard. But
The lines seem to have become blurred these days in the sense that you hear repeatedly of managers having players signed and foisted upon them by chief executives or company secretaries, as you were, with a different title but the same job, who knew better. How would that have gone down with Howard Wilkinson or any of the managers?
Well, I dread to think that if I'd gone to Graham Taylor, Ian Porterfield or Howard Wilkins and said, by the way, I've signed so-and-so, I think you might need an awful lot of bleeps on your screen to cover what the replies would be.
Yeah, and rightly so.
Exactly, and I cannot for the life of me see, I'm not questioning the capabilities or the credibilities of today's chief executives or recruitment managers or directors, but I cannot see how they can be the persons responsible for signing players. It's the manager's job, it's the manager's livelihood that depends upon it. And if the present chief executives are going to follow that path and the team perform badly, then when the manager gets the sack, so should two other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Bert McGee, belt and braces, as I said, but looking back, I don't think now that this guy got as much credit as he deserved. He effectively rescued Sheffield Wednesday from a deep abyss in the mid-70s by being really pragmatic, by being really parsimonious. And of course, when the good times were rolling, he was still quite parsimonious, wasn't he? Yeah. And he got some criticism then, but you could see where he was coming from because he got the club running within its means.
Exactly. He'd had a situation where prior to me joining, the club had gone through some difficult financial times. They'd been to see the bank, which in actual fact was the same bank that Sheffield United were involved in, and the bank declined the guarantees. And Bert McGee did say to me, got up and left the meeting at that point and said, that's the last time you'll ever do that to me. And he came back and along with his directors, he resolved the financial situation, and when I joined, it was healthy.
One thing that wasn't healthy that you kind of uncovered at Hillsborough was, in your words, sticky fingers at the turnstiles.
At the turnstiles, yeah, very much so.
So a little bit of background on that. We'll move on quickly from it, but a bit of background there.
I always held great respect and close working relationships with the police superintendent or the commander, the matchday commander, and I used to spend a lot of my time before a game walking around the ground, observing what was going off, in attendance with the police, or if I was on my own, I was, and certainly this applied at Sheffield Wednesday, I was always on the walkie-talkies that the police were on, so you could always hear what was going off. And this particular day, it was actually my first game. We were walking around the terraces at Leppings Lane end, and looking over at the turnstiles, we noticed that there were people coming through either over the turnstiles or under the turnstiles. And the first request to me was, do you want me to manhandle them? I said, no, leave it, because there's no point if Eric England's retiring.
And I don't want to stop you there, because people can read in the book the ruse that you came up with in order to catch the guilty parties, and you followed through on that. I was going to come to, some events of great gravity. Obviously, the Hillsborough disaster in '89. You'd left by 3 years then, but you were involved in the inquiry process.
Yeah, I was interviewed twice by the officer in the preparation of it. Very in-depth, very professional, very open. I put down exactly what I had experienced at the club and everything to do with the management of the crowds. But my involvement was nothing at all to do with the events of the day. The barristers that was representing, I was cross-examined by 13 barristers, and they were particularly interested in the work that had been done in and around the ground during my tenure. and was trying to point the finger at Sheffield Wednesday for penny pinching and not completing the work as it should be done, which was totally false, because the one thing that the chairman, Bert McGee, said to me once we had the safety of sports ground meetings, anything to do with safety, don't bring it to the board, just get it done, because we don't want any gremlins in the cupboard. So everything was done as advised by the consultant engineers. But the barristers, I think, were questioning some of the...
It was quite an intense process for you, and reading the book, you needed counselling following
driving home after the last day, I thought, oh, that's finished, thank goodness. I wonder if I shall have to go back. And it was probably 2 or 3 weeks later, I was really depressed. And had I been responsible, had I been the officer responsible, I don't know what would have happened with me, because it was bad enough as it was.
Had you been working at the club?
And I was given a spell of counselling, which I never ever thought I would ever go to. Yeah. It was, I think, fairly intense, because my GP wrote to the coroner and said, if there's any further inquiries, I'm not going to permit my client to come.
Right. Following Hillsborough, of course, there were reforms, and in particular about stadiums, all-seater stadiums. Facilities improved dramatically, not before time.
Well, very much so.
And a constant theme of your book is that you feel the supporter, right the way through your time in football and right the way through to now, has had a bad deal.
In my days, Alan, I can truthfully say about Lincoln City and particularly Sheffield United, those two clubs, it was always a question from the board, what can we increase? What can we charge more for? Where can we get this from? And it was all based upon the supporter. And without the supporter, you haven't got a club. And particularly when you come into the Sheffield situation, the level of support is akin to religion. With you're either a Wednesday, either United, and whatever it is, they will go the extra mile to support the club. And I don't think that the club, it took me a while in actual fact, and at Sheffield United we formed a group called Blaze 1981 Limited, which was an idea of encompassing every person from whatever background they came from, to have an association there which they could become attached to. And the one thing which caused, again, a few arguments and discussions was I wasn't allowed to introduce a ladies' luncheon club or a ladies' club. And to me, in those days, the lady of the house was probably the one most neglected in preference to football. And I think they deserved a place. And as events have turned out with in today's market, it's only too clear to see.
You were proved ahead of your time, really.
I think, because when we've taken players to schools, etc., and we always used to set them some tasks to enhance the learning, and the ones that responded, we left some complimentary tickets, and invariably, the children came with the mothers.
Yeah, indeed. One of the aspects of the book it's gone into, we've done in a previous show actually with Dick, we were ahead of our time because we talked to him during lockdown. You can find this on my YouTube channel, by the way. We did a show about the machinations involving the top clubs of the mid-1980s in aligning themselves with a Super League, a secret Super League project, which didn't come to pass. But Dick knew all about that, and that is in the book. We won't go into it here because you can find it elsewhere on this particular show. Just before we come to some lighter moments, I mean, we talked about Hillsborough, but there was an incident, and this sort of takes us briefly back to Sheffield United, where you it wasn't you personally that fielded the bomb scare, but there was a reserve game taking place at Bramall Lane.
There was a call came into the offices, which the reception passed through to me, and it was a broad Irish brogue saying, expect a bomb to go off at your reserve game. One's been planted. And at that particular time, bomb scares were common. So it was taken very serious, instant call to the police, and sniffer dogs and police, and it was inundated with them. Nothing was discovered. A question then was, does the game go ahead or not?
That's your call.
That was my call. I talked seriously with the police and the investigators. They were pretty sure there wasn't. It was a hoax. And I said, OK, let the game go ahead. And I sat in the John Street stand, because that's where the director sat at that time, thinking, oh my God, hurry up and get this match over with.
Well, you're here to tell the story.
I'm here to tell the story, yeah, but it was a worrying time.
Yeah, it was around the time when Roy Mason, the Barnsley MP, was Northern Ireland.
Well, he used to, when he was finishing down in the House of Commons, he used to, very often, if Barnsley was away, he always called him with us, and he always had an entourage of security people, and when he arrived, everything stopped to ensure.
I know. Talking about entourages, you used the word sponges to me earlier today when we were discussing this interview about the people who would populate directors' boxes.
Again, my first dealings at Sheffield United. At that time, it was not uncommon for visiting managers. I'm not talking about the manager of the team that was playing, but other visiting managers would request a ticket. And throughout football, the manager came into the director's box and or his fellow director. I was in a position where I couldn't do that because the director's box was full. It was full of friends of this man, friends of that man, friends of friends.
And your book will detail how you cleared them all out, basically.
Yeah.
And made way.
Yeah.
Graham Taylor. Now, obviously, your formative years in football were spent at Lincoln City. You know, you brought those skills to both sides of Sheffield, and you worked with Graham Taylor, which I'm sure was a great experience. He had tremendous success at Lincoln at the start of a very successful career. But there was one lovely story about Graham Taylor in disguise, where you and he went to a match to scout players.
We travelled down to Reading at that particular time. Reading and Lincoln were vying for the top spot, and Graham wanted to see a player in the opposing side. So I spent quite a lot of time travelling around the country with Graham, watching players, not for my betterment, but it gave us the opportunity of being able to talk and plan a community programme and everything that we were doing within the club at Lincoln. At this particular time, we got down there and we were watching. Graham was obviously got his eyes on the player that he got in mind, and I said to Graham, "Christ, that left winger of Reading's some player. Christ, he's skinning him." So Graham had previously, before we went into the ground, because he never went in the director's box, we went on the terraces. He took out a moustache, a beard, thick glasses, baseball, cloth cap, looked nothing like Graham Taylor. And I said, "What the hell are you doing that for?" He said, "I don't want anybody recognising me."
And so they did they? There was an exchange with a supporter that you had.
We were talking, and Graham said about this, when I mentioned it to Graham about this left winger at Reading's, he said to these guys, "God, he's a some player you've got there, isn't he?" He said, "He's all right tonight. It's not. He ain't been in the nightclubs. You see him on a Saturday, he's half cut." So banter carried on, and we come to about quarter of an hour before kick-off, and I said to Graham, "Are we going to make moves?" Or I think Graham might have said as well, "We don't want to get caught in the traffic because we got a long journey home."
Yeah.
So Graham said to his mates, "Well, who's the team that you fear most of? Who's the threat? Oh, he said it's Lincoln City. This lad said. So I said, oh, who's the manager at Lincoln City? He said, oh, he's a gobshite called Graham Taylor. He said, he's coming here a week on Saturday, we'll stuff it up him. So we got ready to go, and Graham said, well, thanks for the hospitality. By the way, will you be here for the Lincoln game? He said, oh yeah, I come for every match. He says, well, I'll be on that bench across there because I'm Graham Taylor.
That's fantastic. I can just see Graham saying all that and enacting all of that. That's a tremendous story.
The lad's mates took the right mickey out of it.
There's some great stories as well. I mean, you spent an evening with Eric Morecambe, which must have been memorable. That was before...
That was with Harry Aslam.
Yeah, because he was a great mate of...
But there were contacts at Luton.
Right, so you spent an evening with Eric Morecambe, but I particularly like the Sir Matt Busby story, where you met him in very unusual circumstances. Of course, revered legend of Manchester United, and
I growing up used to go across to Manchester with a pal in an A35 saloon car, which people nowadays wouldn't really know what it was, but there would be 6 of us in it, going over the Pennines, lucky to get over the top, and then I joined football, and the first year we were drawn against Stockport and Crewe. And David Hurt, the manager, said, well, it's a bit daft. We're going to go the same road. I'll have a word with the chairman and see if we can stay overnight, which we did. We stayed at the Alma Lodge in Stockport. And on the day of the match, I said to David, before I said to David, oh, I've got to go to a Football League meeting at Lithers. I'll get you a lift.
Yeah.
So he came back, he said, you've got to be in reception at 9:30. I was in reception, this fella came and asked for a Mr. Chester. I went to him, he said, oh, I'm Les Olive, secretary at Manchester United. Oh, I thought, oh,
that's impressive.
That's all right.
Yeah.
He said, the car's out there, I've got somebody else in it. So I got in the car, it's Sir Matt Busby. And he'd never stopped talking to me about the relationship with David and how long I'd been in football, and I'd only just started.
He made sure you were well looked after at the Football League meeting,
we got to Lytham St Anne's, and they came to him like a magnet.
Yeah.
Alan Hardacre in the front of it, and Matt Busby stood on one side and said, before you say anything to me, please meet Dick Chester, the new secretary at Lincoln City, and I'm asking you now to treat him the same as you treat me.
Yeah.
And all the directors or chairman in the room came to Matt Busby and did exactly the same, and that's where I started to build up all my relationships.
That's real quality, that.
And Alan Hardacre was brilliant as far as I was concerned, and was very good towards Lincoln City.
Yeah, it's interesting that you should get on with 2 sort of blunt individuals in Bert McGee and Alan Hardacre, presumably because they were straight.
Yeah, I like people straight.
Yeah, straight and to the point.
Straight and to the point.
And Bert McGee was very much a throwback, actually, as a chairman.
And I think as long as they're straight, they're good to the word.
Yeah. In fact, Dick Chester's quite modestly only written a few words about this. He was headhunted to become the FA secretary at one time. That was rather clandestine, wasn't it?
It was really.
Without the non. I think Ted Croker was FA secretary at the time.
Ted Croker.
And they were secretly trying to get rid of him.
Yeah.
And they approached you. I mean, there are so many other stories.
That
in
was
here.
kindly through the Dick Ragg contact.
Dick Ragg, yeah, and the Sheffield United connection
Yeah.
there. It really is. I mean, I've read every word. It's a most entertaining book. It's an informative book. And I also think that the powers that be in football should get hold of a copy, because they could correct a lot of what is wrong with the game now by looking at this man's experiences across a long career. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Dick. I hope the book goes well.
I do, yeah.
Yeah. It's been an interesting exercise for you to do something that you never expected to do until you had a conversation with me.
That's right.
I'll have to be careful who I talk to in future. But I'll always talk to you out there.
No,
Dick,
I've got to be careful who I talk to.
you have. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much.